Hello, Richard Dancy.
Hello. Hi. How are you doing?
A celebrity on the lockdown lesson, like Richard Dancy.
Definitely not.
It's only because you were watching a lockdown lesson the other day with me and
Yes.
Phil and taking the mickey mercilessly that
Yes.
you're on this at all. So that's what you get for heckling.
Have you explained my typo error to Phil?
Why would I do that? It's much more fun if you think you use the word lol.
I don't use the word lol.
I have told him, but he did not believe me at all.
Lol.
He's got the lol police on you. So
Yeah.
lol in a he was multitasking though, weren't you? In fairness to you, and
I was outside. Don't text into a show when you're outside doing gardening. Yeah.
Well, yesterday actually, Phil's comeuppance happened, and I have to tell you this. Yeah. So he goes. I'm on the phone to a client. He goes in the kitchen to make himself some tomato soup in a mug. We're in the office, and 2 minutes later, there's a massive shout from the kitchen. I go in. It looks like there's been a massacre. There's been a massacre in a tomato factory because you know what he's done? He's got a mug. I haven't got it here. That's got a metal handle that he thought was okay to put in the microwave.
Oh.
And then when he's gone to take it out, he just grabbed the mug like that. So he's gone like that with the mug. He's got a blister the size of Wales on his finger. And the kitchen was in carnage.
So the microwave didn't blow up. It was Phil.
Unbelievably, the microwave did not blow up. I said, was it sparking? He goes, I didn't really notice.
Well, I've been doing gardening and I've got all sorts of gardening injuries.
All wounds, have you?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're supposed to have. I've just been on the phone to Lizzie Laird and she's probably got baking injuries. Everybody's got injuries apart from me. I don't do anything except put other people's food and don't use the microwave. So I'm in good shape. Anyway, so this is the life of a business owner. Nice segue there. Do you see that? This is the life of an entrepreneur. And if you saw my news at 10, which you probably didn't because you were probably too busy ironing your shirt.
Yes.
I was talking about the fact that I don't know any successful business owner who didn't work crazy hours in at least the first few years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Although they say, as you know, the cliche that, if you find something you love, you never work another day in your life.
That's exactly what I said. Well, I didn't say those words so eloquently, but I said, look, it doesn't feel like work to me because I love what I do. So one thing we're going to talk about in this session is finding what you do that you love or finding what you love. And unfortunately, if it's making jigsaws, nobody's going to pay you for that. So it's finding something that you already love doing that you could possibly make a business out of, or find more love in the business you've got enough to expand it, perhaps. That's the kind of things we're going to talk about. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right as well that you've got to find something that is right, because a friend of mine said to me last week, I'm going to pack it all in and I'm going to make my cushions. And they're lovely cushions, do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, I think you'd have to make an awful lot of cushions and spend 24 hours a day making cushions and selling them all at a very high price to actually be able to have a cushions business. So that's to be realistic.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, postman. I don't know why I just had to announce his presence then. I make, this sounds grander than it is. I have made on occasion stockings for for the kids in my family. Right, so every child that comes along, I make a little stocking, and they bring that out every year. And Molly won, and it's all got a pliqué on it, and they're all bespoke to each child. And I put a lot of love into it. And Molly said to me one day, "You could sell those, Mum." And I went, "Okay, how much do you think?" This is Molly for you. How much do you think I could sell them for? She went, "At least £25, at least, probably 30 actually." And I went, so I went, it cost me more than £25 in all the things I put on it, never mind a week.
Without your time as well.
So if you're thinking about going into the stockings business, don't bother. I've already scoped it out. It doesn't exist.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Tell everybody why you know so much about business, why you're a multimillionaire. And
that's not true.
I told you not to laugh at that.
Yeah.
And what's your history?
Okay. Well, I think the first thing I would say is to surround yourself with very good people, which I seem to have managed to do, and also be in the right place at the right time. Sorry, or marry into it. Yes.
Say that out loud.
Although at the time I married, I was more successful than the person I married, and then they became very successful. But I think they were going to do that anyway.
Yeah, it's cause and effect, that, isn't it, going on?
Possibly, yeah. So no, well, I've been my family. Most of them are self-employed, and I became self-employed and have worked in the franchising industry actually for most of my life. For people who don't know what franchising is, it is surrounding us all the time, actually. So most people think of the likes of McDonald's or Starbucks or Costa Coffee or whatever, but actually Starbucks don't do much franchising. It is Costa that is the franchise success.
I didn't know that.
But then there's also, lots of different. There's franchising in your industry, in estate agents. I think you've dabbled with it as well. And I was actually in the pet industry, so primarily pet food, dog and cat food, home delivery cat food and dog food, and then compare local lakes business called Barking Mad, which people may or may not have heard of. So head off.
Heard of it here? There must have done, and it's nationwide, isn't it?
It's nationwide, yeah. Global headquarters in Kirby Lonsdale. But yeah, so the I guess that was dogs is a passion of mine, still is, as is yours, I know, and that's how we met, isn't it? That's how we got to know each other.
I think it's how I met Lee. I think I met Lee through Lottie. She was walking. It was Lottie, wasn't it?
Bronte originally,
Bronte.
I think.
Sorry,
yeah,
I was mixed up. Sorry, Bronte. Yeah, we met down at Devil's Bridge, and we just went for a walk, and then and it turned into a friendship. And then I met you about, must have been 10, 15 years later than that, and Barking Mad had just taken off. So when I first met Lee, she was kind of talking. She'd started it, but she hadn't got any franchisees or anything. She thought she had the business structure, and this is how far a lot of people get, isn't it? And then she took it to the next level, which was franchising. And now Barking Mad's got how many franchisees?
It'll be 90, around 90 plus, something like that. But
size, isn't it? It's really good size. So but to have that idea, and that's what really it made me really interested in talking to you both over the years. To have the idea and then to be able to envision the future, and then try and work out the steps you needed to take, because you can't have known anything about franchising right at the very start. So how would you start that? So you're also involved in lots of local businesses and helping people with franchising and consultancy, and particularly on franchisee marketing. That's your kind of specialism, I would have thought, is it?
Yeah, and I've also been doing strategy and recruitment, franchisee recruitment for franchisors. So the franchisor is the person who has the business and has the idea, and then they decide to expand that business with lots and replicate it in lots of different places. So just like we're using the example of McDonald's or Costa, that will pretty much work anywhere where there's people who like McDonald's or Costa. And just like Barking Mad, people have dogs, they love them, they want an alternative to kennels where the dog can go and stay with a loving host family. Even though I'm not involved with them anymore, I'm still promoting them.
So that you sold the business, didn't you?
Yeah, we sold the business in 2016, actually. Now,
right? Okay, gosh,
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
one would think you're a gentleman of leisure, but it would appear not.
No, well, it appears that we're spending money on our house, which you wouldn't disagree with, I guess.
No.
And we have a daughter who, keeps us busy and spends money for us. So yes.
And Lee's project managing, isn't she? All the lovely works you're having done to the house.
Yeah, we've got a holiday let actually in sunny Barben, and so we've been doing that. We just set that up beginning of this year.
But your garden's gorgeous at the moment, doesn't it? Absolutely gorgeous.
Well, it would do if it didn't have pallets and builders and all sorts of things in it. But yes, it will look nice again one day.
So speaking of things like gardening, because I used to live down in Surrey, and we used to see a lot of franchised vans around for sort of home care stuff, like builders, joiners, plumbers, lawn care, those kind of things. But there are some businesses that shouldn't be and aren't successful with franchises. are there? Have you come across any particular ones that are not really franchisable?
Well, the sort of key to franchising is that, there's a number of things that have to come together. It won't necessarily work. So there has to be enough money in it for the franchisor and the franchisee, for a start. So if you're working on very, very tight margins, then maybe there isn't money for a middle person. Also, it has to work everywhere, so it has to be replicated. So something that might, I work with a company called the London Karting Company a few years ago, and they wanted to expand across into different cities, and obviously they couldn't call themselves the London Karting Company. But karting still works in cities in lots of places. It wouldn't work in Kirkby Lonsdale because there's not enough people. But so you've got to make sure that it can be replicated, and it's just not something. There's a lot of things that would work in London that, because of the number of people that are in London, the potential audience that they have, would work there, and you could be really niche in things. But they wouldn't necessarily work in other places. So you've got to check that it's replicable.
And how do things like a utility warehouse work? So they're more of a network marketing company. Are they a franchise? Do people buy one?
I don't know. Actually, I haven't come across them in the franchising world. They're probably more of a license.
What did you say?
A license or an agency.
Yeah, so Phil's just decided just to interrupt our lockdown lesson with his words of wisdom. He says they're all self-employed. That's really useful. Thanks, Phil.
They're self-employed, yeah. Okay, yeah. I think it's more like a license model.
Yeah.
But with franchising, you are self-employed. So the way that it works is that so you run your own business, but the franchise itself has all the sort of the system and the support and the training and the operations manual, everything you totally need to be able to run that business, and all the expertise, all the things that you have learned from running your business, you can help other people expand. And it's a way of expansion. So Costa, again, as an example, they've got thousands and thousands of outlets. They used other people to grow their business using their brand, which people like. So that worked really well. And that's what we decided to do with Barking Mad, or Lee decided to do with Barking Mad back 20 odd years ago. And it works really well, and you support and work with other people. So I guess we're talking about turning your passion into an income. If you've got something that you think is a great idea, and you've been doing it successfully, you might want to then franchise your business because you think you can help other people expand and run your business. I'm working with a company at the moment called The Cleaning Company. It's a B2B business, and they do build cleans, after build cleans, and what they call sparkle cleans. So if a new shop opens, they go in after the plumber and the plasterer and everyone else has been in, and make it absolutely wonderful for the big high street stores. And they are having, it's a great business, and they are expanding, and they do decontamination work as well. So COVID-19 decontamination work is big for them. And yeah, they decided to expand via franchising, because they're getting loads of business around the country, and they're sending people up to different parts of the country, and it's not as efficient, and you don't have local knowledge, and that kind of thing works really well for franchising. So, yeah.
I think in our industry, which I know you know quite well, in the estate agency industry, there's lots of different ways of expansion. So I suppose, Phil and I, we've got Ashdown Jones, we've built it up over 3 years. It's a good business. There's lots of different ways we could expand it now. And for those of you who are listening who are already a business, there's probably more than. I think some people talk about franchising way too early in the game, like they're opening their first outlet and they're already thinking franchising. And actually, you've got to prove the model first, haven't you? You've got to prove it works and develop the IP and the systems and the processes before you then go to the next stage.
Yeah, you definitely can't franchise until you've got something to franchise. And we do have people coming to me saying, I want to franchise my business. And actually, they've only been running, 6 months. And the business is been going great. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be successful in the long term or even the medium term. And you've got to look at how much money you need, and who's going to finance you, and who's going to support you, and whether you're going to do it ethically. You're going to be part of the British Franchise Association, for example, and some people will do it on the cheap, maybe, and kind of ends up a bit like what do they call it? A multi-level marketing schemes, those kind of things. And that is not franchising. That is definitely nothing to do with it. That is something that some people do and think they can make a fast buck, and maybe some people do. But franchising is about taking a business and then making it as successful as possible. And obviously, some people may want to just be a franchise. I say just be a franchisee. Very, very good job to do. There are loads of franchises in the Lakes. I used to take my daughter to Rhythm Time, which is a like sing along for kids. I don't know if you're.
I don't know. I don't think
grandchildren will go to.
My children have not been to it. I remember tumble tots. We used to have a tumble tots.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah. It's really good. It's really good.
One of the ingredients that we spotted, because we have looked into franchising Ashdown Jones, was the ingredients that are there. So, for example, with tumble tots, you need to know where to find the equipment. You need to, you need things like the t-shirts and the branding and the health and safety and the systems and the lead generation, all that. So you're buying a business in a box in a way, but there are some franchises that just don't lend themselves to that. So, for example, if you've got a self-employed gardener, so I know that you've got the Green Thumb one. So that's a certain way of doing a lawn.
Yeah, we use them. They're really good.
Products. Yeah, they're very good. But if you've got a self-employed gardener that is being required to do lots of different kind of bespoke, unique gardening for each house, tailor-made, doesn't seem to make sense to me that would be a franchise. Would you agree with that? It feels like more of an expansion of employees.
Yeah, it depends what it is that is unique and replicable and not something that can be copied. You've got to trademark these things. Mm-hmm. So you've got to have something to trademark. So if all your kind of expertise is in the person who does it, and that can't be, then that's not as easily franchised. But there are things.
Can you? You can't protect the idea either.
No.
Go over and just copy the same thing, call it something different.
Yeah, but you might have a system that you use. You might have a computer system or a marketing system or something that works really, really well. And I know you do this. You give advice to other estate agents, and you kind of sell that expertise because you've been there, done that, you've learned the lessons, you've done it. Basically franchising works because you found something that is tried and tested over many years that works, and you can then sell that knowledge on, and somebody doesn't have to then make all those mistakes. They can do it themselves really quickly.
It's people who don't even want to make decisions because they don't know which way to go, and every junction there might be several decisions, and that if you take one wrong junction, you're going to end up on a very different path, and that's what we've already done. We've already found those junctions and those right decisions. So
that's right. Yeah, but you could. I mean, there's not to say that you couldn't do that in gardening. It's just you might have a really good system for I don't know, looking at a space and saying this is exactly the way that it should work, and if you follow these steps. I worked with an architect who franchised her business.
Really?
And you think, well, how can you franchise that? But she had a system that she found worked, and she noticed that it didn't work with it. No one else was doing it, and there was a lot of issues for sort of self-employed jobbing architects who weren't having the same success she was having. So she franchised it. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, I can see that working. So let's just go back to the beginning, which is. So you love dogs, and so you created a dog business, or your family did. Is that right? Is that how the very first thing happened in your?
It was from personal experience and passion. Yeah. So Lee, she had Bronte, who's a lovely Dalmatian that she got from Cartmel, and she then realized when she went away or whatever, she just gave Bronte, Bronte was looked after by her family, and then they had a family Christmas in Florida where my brother-in-law, her brother, lives, and what do you do with the dog? So it was an idea, and then she suddenly realized that there's lots of people who don't want to put their dogs in kennels, and don't necessarily want someone coming around to their house while they're away. And so what do? So you leave your dog with so it's a service that she created. And it was the early days of websites, actually, back in sort of late 90s, early 2000s. And so she set up a website, went on a night course to learn how to do websites, and then found that she was getting inquiries from all around the UK. She thought, hang on a minute. So by that time, she'd be going a bit. And she took advice from a consultant, a franchise consultant, which
that's what I remember the conversation being about.
Yeah, and took some not cheap advice, actually, although very, very good value for money if you look at it in the long term, because you can make some really bad decisions right in the early days. So
well, say that. If you just look at the obstacles that she came across, or really sort of the milestones, milestone one was she needed that service herself.
Yes.
It was born out of a love of her pet and the lack of being able to do what she needed to do. You know, that was the very first point. And then she saw the commercial possibilities in that for herself. And then she saw the wider picture. And then, very importantly, at that critical moment, she took professional advice. And that all had to go in that order, really, didn't it?
Yeah. And she was entrepreneurial, but realized that she knew she had to understand and find out. So I guess we were doing this five things that you need to do. Number one on my list was do your research, know your stuff.
You got a list.
And
forgot about a list.
Yeah, you told me 5 things.
I did.
So the first thing is do your research. And so Lee knew some things. And when we were doing the pet food, we knew about pet food. But we didn't necessarily know about home delivery or how to run a small business from home, that kind of thing, and how to replicate it. So we took advice from a franchise consultant. And so, do your research, whatever it is that you're thinking that you could do. You need to find out whether you can make money from it, whether it is replicable, whether you can trademark it, whether, because if you can't trademark it and then someone just come along and steal your idea and do it themselves. If it's easy to do, then you really haven't got something that you can franchise or you can run. And then you might think, actually, this is something I really want to do. I don't want to become a franchisor, but I, you can do your research into the franchises that are available. So you can see, well, I want to do gardening, and I maybe, I'm not very good at the kind of structure side or doing my VAT or whatever it is that you have to do. So you might look and find a franchise that suits you. So you could, so that's all part of, doing your planning, you do due diligence, your financial business planning, whatever it is that you're looking at.
Going back to Barking Mad, which is definitely a business in the box, and it's a lifestyle business in the box, isn't it? Buying into something that's already been done, the hard work's been done, the mistakes have been made, and every question you could possibly, have every eventuality has probably already happened to another franchisee. So you've got a support network of people where they go, oh yeah, that happened to me, so I can
pretty much. Yeah, definitely.
Shortcutting a lot of the issues, but on the other side of that, you've got to pay for that, right? You've got to pay for the franchise, and you've got to pay the ongoing royalty fee for that expertise and that support, which is fair. So it's kind of you've got to weigh them both up, haven't you?
Yeah, and generally what happens is if you have an idea and it becomes franchise and you sell the franchise, then those franchisees their turnover and their growth in their business will go up much quicker than it did for you originally, because you've got that support, you've got the brand, you've got the ways of doing things more efficiently, and it is a much quicker and easier way in many circumstances of running a business. And also, often people need finance, so they need to go to the banks. The banks very well know that most businesses that are independent and set up, most of them fail within the first 3 to 5 years, whereas with franchising, most of them don't fail.
Yeah.
So
it's exact inverse, isn't it? It's like 95% fail versus 95% succeed.
Yeah, so lots succeed in franchising. So the banks are happy to lend you money. and at a better rate, and more money in many circumstances. So and franchising right now in these times is quite interesting because I've actually been quite busy with people sort of having a look and thinking, yes, I'm at home, I'm furloughed, or I'm on lockdown or whatever. Do I really want to be doing what I'm doing? Maybe I should be looking at something else.
Maybe their job isn't secure either. Maybe they're employed.
Yeah, maybe they have to. Yeah.
You've got 3,000 Virgin employees there, all thinking about what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. They might be considering, some of them, franchising. Maybe some people just need that little push to make them think in a different way. So the way I see franchising, it's kind of like a safe self-employment, where you haven't total control, but you've got enough control to be able to control, say, your day or the way that business affects your life. But at the same time, you've got the business structure to be able to fall back on. And I think that something that as a franchisor, that you need to do at first is you need to take yourself out of the business and then reverse engineer the things that have made you a success. And very often it is the person that started the business and makes it a success. And Lee was very good at taking himself out of the business. What we're probably not very good at is taking us out of the business, because we are literally Ashdown Jones.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was called, Barking Mad. So she was able to take herself out of the business more effectively, I think.
Yes. Although, there will be aspects that you, the things that you do that you could, I guess, package up, and which I think you have done to a certain extent, and sell that expertise on, because people don't.
Let's talk about how so let's say you found your passion, you've already created a business. Let's talk about the different things you can do with that expertise or that passion. So one of them is you can go down the franchise route. So you could actually franchise your business. And the first step, you need to do your due diligence and find a franchise lawyer and a franchise consultant, or speak to you, I presume. Are you available for hire?
Yes, yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm doing franchise consultancy now. Yeah, it's very, very. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. And funnily enough, I did speak to an airline pilot. I was just thinking, I spoke to an airline pilot last week. Yeah. He'd been working for Ryanair, and before that BMI. And so, they're both, well, I don't know what's going on to Ryanair, but anyway, he's not working at the moment, obviously. So, so talk to somebody who knows the industry, and do your research on the brand, or if you want to franchise your own business, speak to someone like me.
What we did notice, we went to the National Franchise Exhibition about a year and a half ago. I know you've been there lots of times and exhibited there as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
What we noticed is some people were going in kind of with money in the bank, thinking, what do we fancy doing? And I felt that was the wrong way around, because I think that if you know what you already love, then you need to try and find the franchise to go with it. Whereas you're going in and you're going, well, do I want a McDonald's franchise or do I want a Barking Mad franchise? To me, they seem like completely different lifestyle choices.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it depends on the individual. A lot of people I speak to, because I do a franchise recruitment, as I said, for other brands, is I spoke to a chap the other day who was looking at the cleaning company, and he was also looking at a courier franchise. So they are completely different, but they're a similar sort of level, similar sort of investment, similar sort of skills that you need, project management, employ people. So, it depends. If you're just going in, you might just initially go in for ideas and have a look and think, well, I definitely don't want to do that. Lots of things I've done have ended up being because I know I definitely don't want to do the alternative. And so yeah, but you're right. If you've got a passion in something, and then it is better to look at, find out what's available with that particular industry or whatever it is service you're doing.
So the other thing that we were looking at, which we had a good chat about yesterday, was we have launched a license brand for Ashdown Jones. So because we didn't feel anybody wanted to buy a license called Ashdown Jones, no idea why. That we probably wouldn't make any sense.
They possibly could have done. Who knows?
Possibly, maybe. Only one Sam Ashdown there, Richard. Sorry. There's lots of Phil Joneses. There's lots of Phil Joneses. But we felt that we needed, and this will be a similar brand to Fine and Country, which we'll talk about what the difference is, because a lot of people think that's a franchise. So the idea is it's called unique and exclusive, and an estate agent can be a licensee, and then what they're getting for that is the systems, like you said, the marketing systems, lead generation systems. They're also getting, our bespoke marketing that we do for Ashdown Jones, and the systems we use to recruit things like photographers, all copywriters, all the things that we use. We've kind of packaged it and gone, right, well, we will teach you how to do that. And at the same time, you can use our brand. And in return, we charge a monthly fee, depending on the size of the area. Now, that is actually what Fine and Country do. So the difference between Fine and Country and, let's say, You Move, with the sheep, which I know you know.
Yeah.
So You Move with a sheep is a franchise, and you literally buy an area. So you put your £20,000 down or whatever, and then you pay 30% of revenue, whatever it is. Whereas a license like Fine and Country, you're renting that area, and you're renting the marketing for that area and the ability to use the brand on an exclusive basis. Do you want to just talk about the differences there and how you would make that kind of choice if you were a brand owner?
Generally, I think that the difference between licensing and franchising is almost always the amount of support that you're getting. So you can buy, I was working with a company that does language training and languages for adults, but mainly kids, actually. And it's teaching. Now, if you're a language teacher, then you can buy a license, and you can go online and download all the workbooks and that kind of thing. And it's just a license, and you pay every month for it. I think it's called the French or the Club Français or something like that. Or you can buy a franchise, and the franchise is you're part of a business. You get business support, you get planning, you get regular meetings. You see them, they come and do support with you. You go and go to regional meetings and that kind of thing. So it's a much bigger concern. It costs more, and so that is generally the difference.
Well, also with a franchise, we felt that we were committing to helping them start up as an estate agent when maybe they've never been an estate agent before. Whereas with a unique and exclusive, we feel, right, you already know how to be an estate agent. This is how to do it to this level.
Right, so exactly. And there's all sorts of examples of that, like, you could almost act a bit like a buying group, a bit like a Spa or a Londist or whatever. And you basically, they commit to buying a certain amount of stuff that they need from you. But they don't have to get everything from you, and they don't have to do everything that you say. You can basically do as much or as little as you like, depending on how useful you find it. So it's a bit, there are all sorts of different levels of it, I would say. I was just thinking, when you said you're going to be called what was it, exclusive, something exclusive,
unique and exclusive. We've trademarked it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you can trademark the mark, but probably not those words. Can you? You can't trademark those words. No. Yeah, so that's another thing to be
in the world.
You got to be careful what you come up with.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, same with Fine and Country. They can't trademark the words. They can only trademark.
Right. Yeah, because they're quite generic. Yeah.
The word fine is a very generic word, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, which is why those American brands have stupid spellings of things. So quick is KWIK and things like that, because sorry,
that's how you spell quick. Sorry, all my are going off on the sensors. Come on, back on again.
You're not moving.
Okay, that's a good point. So you've got to think about the trademarking as well, and also how that person can use the brand. So we've made the decision that somebody can just buy into the system but not use the actual words if they didn't want to. So they could have, they could be called Windermere Estate Agents, and they just offer this level of service on top of their service at the moment. And they don't have to call that service unique and exclusive. They can call it Windermere Premium or whatever. See what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can make those decisions right at the outset. And that's why you need an expert like you to be able to go, well, yeah, but what if this and what if that? And, what if it all goes wrong? Do you buy it back? Do you have to can you just cancel it? What if somebody oversteps their area? Is it geographical? All those other things to consider.
Yeah, it depends as well. Yeah, they're trading as somebody, because one of the key points is that you're trading as Barking Mad or as Ashdown Jones, but you're independently owned and operated by, you know, Joe Bloggs, who's bought the franchise, and so some companies have got into trouble where, you know, if you get a bad burger. Are you from McDonald's? Have you bought that from McDonald's and are McDonald's responsible, or is it the franchisee? And you know, if I die from eating a burger or get horrible food poisoning, am I going to sue McDonald's, or I'm going to sue Joe Bloggs, who owns McDonald's?
That's
And so,
yeah,
you've got to make sure that you know, you've got that covered legally. Because
we had a message yesterday from a brand that will be nameless, but from somebody we thought was a franchisee complaining about the brand, an estate agent brand, and they were saying, "Can you help? It's all, you know, terrible." And anyway, when we looked into it, realized it's actually an employee, not a franchisee, which would have made a massive difference.
Yeah.
And you know, at some point, well, obviously a brand takes responsibility for their employees, but there is a disconnect, isn't there, between a franchisor taking responsibilities for the franchisee's behaviour. It can't all be you know, fall on the franchisor, surely. If that person goes mad and starts shooting people, for example, that's not the franchisor's responsibility. So where does that end?
So that's where it comes down to with the agreement and the contract that you have. So the franchise agreement is the contract that you have as a franchisee and a franchisor, and there's certain things within that responsibilities within that you have to, you know, uphold the brand and act in a certain way, and if it is something that is in breach of that franchise agreement or that contract, then, you know, you could basically say, look, you took this name into disrepute. So if a McDonald's franchisee was doing anything that was any different to what McDonald's very, very strictly stipulate, then very quickly they would no longer be a McDonald's franchisee. And that's how they keep everything. And that's why we like franchising, because we know we can go into McDonald's anywhere around the world pretty much. And all right, there's slight differences, but pretty much you get a Big Mac and it tastes the same anywhere. And that's part of their success.
Really, that's the trade-off, because, you know, you lose your personality. For example, in a place like McDonald's, nobody really cares who runs Kendall McDonald's, for example. I don't know if anybody knows, but whoever that is, people don't care. They're going into McDonald's, they're not going in for the person. Whereas if you're going to go into the Hen House in Bowness, you wouldn't go because it was a chain, you'd go because it was Joanna's. So there's a very different feel about it, isn't it? So let's say you were a shop. In fact, I'm thinking about Carmen now, Carmen Hunt, who owns Christmas on the Lakes, which is her Christmas shop in Bowness. Right. So she comes to you, she says, right, it's done really well, probably not during lockdown, but before then it was doing really well. We're selling Christmas stuff all the year round. You know, it's been a success. We've proven the model, been there for a few years. What are her options for expanding?
Yeah, so it would, well, you'd have to go through the stages, but to see if it's something that would work elsewhere. And is there a reason why it only works in Bowness? Probably not. So probably get a lot.
The name might be an issue.
Sorry?
The name might be an issue. Christmas on the Lakes. Christmas on the
Lakes. Yeah, on the lake. Yeah, you'd have to call it something else. But again, the concept hopefully works elsewhere. So no, there's absolutely no reason why that couldn't be franchised.
She could license. She could supply, like the spa idea, where she becomes the main supplier. For a certain amount of, you know, merchandising, that kind of stuff. She could actually open another branch, couldn't she? She could geographically expand. Do you want to talk about?
So a lot of people use franchising to open other branches very quickly. I think YouMove was one of those that grew extremely quickly. And the reason they're able to do that is they're using the franchisee's capital or the franchisee's borrowing to set up other branches. So suddenly they've got, you know, 50 branches, but they haven't had to buy or set up 50 businesses. The franchisees have done that, and they're not getting all the benefits, but they're not also taking all the risk, and they're also getting a cut from it. So yeah, you'd have to look at the business model and see, where the uniqueness is in that. I mean, presumably there's Christmas shops around the country. So what is it about this one that's different and any better? And
it could genuinely be the mix of suppliers that she's got, because she's been hunting for the best worldwide suppliers for many years, and it could be that is her uniqueness. That people couldn't go and find all those suppliers themselves. There's probably countless suppliers to her.
Yeah, it could be her stock ordering system. It could be her merchandising. It could be her marketing. It could be an online
shop that goes with the actual physical shop as well. So let's say she was going to open a second branch, and those are the things she was thinking of. So franchising is one of them, and obviously we've got a big upfront cost. We've got franchise agreement and everything. It cost us about £4,500 to write the franchise agreement that we never used in the end. But that was a lot of lawyer time, trying to think of every eventuality. So you scrap that idea and you just open a second branch. What are the things you need to consider? Let's say it's Lancaster.
Yeah. So well, first of all, you want to look at your business plan and find why it was successful in Bowness, and is it because it is a tourist spot, and people, tourists, the footfall is from tourists, and they're not necessarily repeat business, because I would suggest that Lancaster is less of a tourist spot, so you've got more repeat business. So have a look, like you said, do your research, find out what it is that would benefit, and do your business and financial planning, understand the market that you're in, and whether that could be replicated, and but if all that looks good and you've found a place to that you think is a good unit to rent, then you would set up a business plan and just have to go for it. I think you might have to look for outside finance, in which case the business plan would be very, very important. Also
of franchising, at least you're getting the upfront money from the franchisee. So you've got your 10, 20, 30 grand or whatever, and then you can then spend that to help invest in that business, to grow that business, whether it be training or materials or whatever it is, So I suppose that rather than trying to put your 30k down, if that's an equivalent, to try and grow the business over the first year and then suffer with recruitment and employees and all the rest of it that you've got to consider. You get a break in Lancaster, you live in Bowness, you've got to think about all those things, haven't you?
Yeah.
So I think that from that point of view, it feels like a safer bet to go for a franchise, but obviously you're not going to benefit from a hugely increased revenue in 5 years' time. The franchisee benefits mostly, and you benefit from just the chunk that you're taking.
I think, look, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? There's pros and cons. You've got the incentive of a franchisee over the incentive of a manager who's just turning up and getting paid. So anyone who runs their own business, often they say they're working for less than the minimum wage because of the number of hours they're putting in, and how difficult it is. So perhaps it would be more successful, but then you might be lucky and get a fantastic employee who manages the store and does brilliantly. In fact, interestingly, the going back to Starbucks and Costa, Starbucks didn't really go down the franchise route, and they became massively successful, whereas Costa have gone down the franchise route, and they've become, they are now looking to challenge Starbucks in America, and globally. They're owned by Coca-Cola now, but Costa's owned by Coke.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and they are, they've grown much more quickly.
Yeah.
And so there's no right or wrong necessarily. It's just preference and the way looking at it. But certainly franchising is a big success story. It's a success story in the UK, specifically. Actually, I mean, people think of it as a sort of American thing, but it's very successful in the UK. The franchise industry is massive, and growing, and employs a lot of people. And in times of recession, actually, and times like this, there is a little boom in franchising because people get made redundant. People have to look for alternative employment or ideas or whatever, and franchising can work really well.
Just talk a little bit about the personality of a franchisee, because it's something I've always struggled with a little bit, because you've got to, they're a very unique, not all beast, but they're a very unique person in that they're not entrepreneurial enough to start their own business on their own, but they don't want to just be an employee. So there's a middle ground, isn't there? These people who have got ambition, but they still need the safeguarding.
Yeah. I mean, it's a generalization, but you're right. If you get somebody who is too entrepreneurial and wants to kind of change the system and come up with too many of their ideas, like I have to say, you might not be a good franchisee. Because you'd be more suited to doing it yourself, because why buy a system, a proven, tried and tested system, if actually you don't want to use that system and you don't want to follow
the mold yourself? There's no you going to mold.
Yeah. So anyone who's too entrepreneurial is not right to be a franchisee. Maybe right to be a franchisor, but and if you're a franchisee that you've got to work hard and follow the system, and you kind of are fed up with working for somebody else, and you see that they're making all the money and you're just taking your paycheck, and you've got no prospects, and you're thinking, well, I want to do it. I want to work for myself, but I don't know how to do whatever it is that I'm thinking of doing. Really, I'm quite good at one thing. Can do the spreadsheets, or I can do the VAT, or I hate doing that, and I can do the marketing and I can do the sales, but I can't. It's quite a lot to be able to have all those skills to do everything. So it is quite good to be able to buy a franchise, and the best franchisees are people who work hard, follow the system, come up with some of their own ideas and bring that to the group and discuss it. And if it's something that is great, then franchisors will, if they're a good franchisor, they'll have a system for kind of talking to about ideas and innovation and that kind of thing. I don't know whether it's true, but a lot of it's not the Big Mac. I think maybe it was the Big Mac. No, it wasn't the Big Mac invented by a franchisee, but something, I don't know, maybe it was a milkshake or something. But
yeah, I've heard something. Oh, it was a McFlurry, wasn't it?
Maybe. Yeah. There's fantastic things that have been, because invented by the franchisees, because you're at the coalface and you see what the customer needs. One thing to mention, actually, as a franchisor, is something, if you're thinking of becoming a franchisor, you at some stage probably have to sell your business to if you've started it as a franchisee, sell your business as a branch and to another franchisee, and then you become a franchisor, and what you're actually doing is managing a group of so you're managing a franchise network, subdivisions,
then, as you kind of
so you've got to kind of step back from your business. So if you really, really love the day-to-day and being hands-on of your business, I guess it's a bit like becoming a headmaster or something. You do really well in teaching, and you kind of move up and up, and then how many headmasters actually teach? They don't. They have to look at the sort of the whole
again, isn't it? Because if you started like we said at the very beginning with your passion, I mean, when you worked with in Barking Mad, how many dogs did you come into contact with? If that was
very few.
You probably moved beyond that, didn't you? We're just running out of time, and I'm running out of charge on my laptop. So Bill's trying to plug me in now, trying to work out how to make it stretch. But I did just want to say as well, I feel that a franchisee needs to be coachable. I don't know about what you think about that. The idea of accepting advice and guidance and support.
Yeah,
you have to be quite coachable to do that. I find that my coaching clients, for example, they have to be very coachable. Otherwise, you just don't get anywhere. They don't progress because they're not open to advice and haven't got a growth mindset.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, yes. I remember, when you're at school, you told them to work on your weaknesses, and I don't want to work on my weaknesses. I just want to use my strengths. And so,
Fair enough.
yeah, yeah. I was told by one trainer once that I was not a candidate for change. And I thought,
I think though, if you work on your strengths can be supersonic strengths. If
right,
Elon Musk had only worked on his weaknesses, he wouldn't be here he is.
right. So don't do your weaknesses, do your
No.
strengths, and get
Yeah.
someone else to do your weaknesses.
And get somebody else to do your weaknesses. Somebody else
Yeah.
to clean your floors and make your meals. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So if you're no good at figures and you're the creative one or the marketing one, then do that. Get someone else to do the figures. Yeah.
No, I was going to
Yes.
say zone of genius. Have you heard of zone of genius before? You've got to work in your zone of genius all the time. I think there's genius, excellence, competency, and then incompetency. There's another one in between, like just a satisfactory one. I can't remember now. And you have to make sure that you're operating. If you're not operating in zone of genius, you can never be super successful. Whatever super successful means for you. If you're only ever working in mediocrity, it could be that as an employee, you feel that you are working in mediocrity all the time. Your zone of competence. And so therefore you're never growing out of that.
Right.
And actually all you need is an opportunity to be able to work in your zone of genius and do something that you love for money.
Yeah. But just going back to your point on kind of who's the right franchisee, I think at the end of the day, whenever we've taken on a franchisee, we have spoken to them for hours, and if not days. And we've, you get to know whether they're going to be the right person or not. It's a bit like having someone to work for you. You kind of, we used to say, they're a barking mad person. They're a barking mad person. They just are.
Even in AJ, we say in Ashdown Jones, we say, they're very AJ or they're not very AJ. And sometimes that's just an instinct, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's and you can tell, certainly after a few hours of discussion, or if someone's going to work with you for a trial period or whatever, you kind of know. And I think that's really important. So I always give that advice to our both potential franchisees and franchisors who are recruiting franchisees. Could you work with this person?
And family as well, don't they? Because they're bought in and as invested as you are. So you're going to see them at events and awards and trainings, and you're going to be on the phone to them at night when they're crying and all that kind of thing. You need to actually like them, I think. And I think that they need you just enough, but not too much. And again, it's a really hard thing to find.
Well, look, in a network, you get all sorts of different people. So you'll get some people that you never speak to, and you'll see them, every sort of the standard number of times that you would see them, say 4 times a year. And other than that, they're basically fine. And other people will pretty much ring in every day and talk to you, and that's fine if that's what they need, and but as a franchisor, you've got to have that support, and you've got to make sure what they need. I mean, we've done in the past profiling, so sort of behavior and I don't know if you've heard of disc profiling. It's probably old hat now, but
no, I have heard of it, and I've done mine. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, you have.
What are you? I bet you're a high I, actually. Are you?
I'm high I. Yeah, high I. Yeah, very low. What's the detail one? C, is it?
C.
Yeah, very low C. High D, high I. Probably similar to you, actually.
I'm off the scale D, quite high I, and 0 SC at all. And if, for those of you watching, if you don't know what this means, just go and look up disc profiling. We've talked about it before on the show, actually. It is a very interesting thing. And Phil is pretty much a mirror of me as well. Yeah,
well, Lee's the same as me as well. Yeah. And so we're not too worried about the detail. We'll get someone else to do that. Get on with someone and get on with it. That's what you need to do.
That's a good place to wrap up. Now, I know you have 5 steps, and I've taken you completely off track, but I think it's really conversation.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll put 5 steps in the text, and if it doesn't make any sense, just going to get in touch with Richard and just get him to explain it to you.
Yes.
And I think Carmen should get in touch with you. Carmen, if you're watching this, Carmen Hunt from Christmas on the Lakes, because that is a replicable business, I think. The name, not so much so, but I think the idea is something that she could expand. And actually not having all your eggs in one basket, you know, as we've just seen, is probably a good thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You spread your risk. It's a big strategic decision, but it's certainly one that's worth looking at.
I think so. All right. Well, you've been fantastic. Thank you, Richard. I knew it's going to be a long session because so much to talk about. And I feel like we've only just brushed the surface as well.
Yeah.
In fact, what we didn't mention was yesterday's lockdown lesson was with Sharon Matthews, who is a travel counsellor, which is a franchise.
Oh, yes, I heard it. Yeah. I listened to that one. Yeah.
And she's fantastic. And she loves being a franchisee and having all the freedom that she's got, as well as the structure and the expertise behind her. So there's lots of different kinds of franchises. And I think Rich is a good person to talk to at the outset, really. There you go.
Very
You're
good.
Be red hot now. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah, great.
I'll make sure to put contacts of some kind anyway in the notes, but it's been
probably
great.
LinkedIn's good way or buy you or whatever. Yeah.
Good idea. All right. Thanks a lot, Richard. Have
Cheers.
a good day. Bye.
Bye.